about Cornish connections around the world this morning. On this show, we've spoken to Americans and Canadians and Australians coming back to the old country to trace their roots. I'd love to hear your stories of the Cornish connections abroad in your family. And I'd also like to hear from you if you're listening abroad because of those Cornish connections. Going to talk to Ian Houston, who lives in Washington, D.C. He writes a newspaper column for Cornwall, reflecting life for the estimated, this remarkable figure, 2 million Cornish Americans in the US. Yes, there are more of them there than there are of us here. Ian Houston, the columnist and commentator on the Cornish diaspora. Ian, hopefully you can hear me now.
I can. Lovely to be with you, Julie. Thank you for having me.
What inspired you to wish to explore the ancestral roots of your countrymen, including the Cornish diaspora? What triggered it?
That is such a good question. I think ultimately it's triggered from within, such as love for family, individuals that have been in my life and influenced my life deeply. So these will be English, Cornish, Scottish, individuals who really made a difference in my life. It's a way to give back, to honor their past, their path, and what direction they took as immigrants. But it's not just only UK, it's the African diaspora, the South American diaspora. These are people that inspire me. So ultimately, I think, Julie, it's also something that I've seen works as a global Scot, someone who's very engaged with activities related to the Global Scot Network and mobilizing diasporas around the world. Global Scot does that effectively, and as a Global Scot, I've seen it work. So it's a internal passion, love for family and heritage, but it's also a practical observation that this type of mobilization actually works and functions well if done properly.
And I think you estimate there, it's a huge figure for us with our sort of relatively small population, about 2 million Cornish Americans in the US, which is a phenomenal number.
It is phenomenal. And for me, it's just seeing the passion there in Cornwall, the entrepreneurship, the innovation, the creativity, and just the depth of culture. That is a light that has gone out through the world. It's gone to the world, and it's quite inspirational. As you say, in America, it's about 2 million. Australia, it's deep. It reaches to Canada and South America. And so it's really to localize this idea, this concept. When we mobilize the diaspora, what does it do for Cornwall? What does it do for Cornish businesses, culture, arts back at home? What it does is it triggers a desire of people to give back, to bridge relationships through business, for trade. It enhances tourism, certainly, but it mobilizes people to give to charities in Cornwall that are doing significant work throughout Cornwall today. And so it's so critically important, I think, for political leaders, the local members of parliament, to understand by mobilizing resources to do this, UK resources to do this, it has a direct benefit for local communities. And in Cornwall in particular, because there's such a strong identity of being Cornish, I am confident 100% that by doing this, we will benefit local businesses and local individuals who are doing good work there.
So if there is a Cornish business, a Cornish enterprise, maybe a Cornish cause or charity that's thinking this is a lot of people who would probably like to connect with their homeland in a way, whether that's through a donation or through investment, what mechanisms are they for these Cornish concerns to actually reach out to the diaspora, globally spread as it is?
Well, that's the challenge that we have before us. It's a little bit, I have here in my office a picture of the St. Michael's Mount, right? And you know, of course, when the tide goes out, we see the causeway that leads to the castle there. And it's a bit like that. The causeway is there. We just need to pull back a little bit and see it and then mobilize it so that we can walk down this path. So it's there, but Julie, it's not organized. And so, as I say, I refer to the Global Scot Network. Scotland has done, I think, a very effective job in building a connections framework of how to mobilize Scots to give back. But it's Ireland, it's other nations around the world. India is very effective in doing this. So we just need to build it. So right now, for that business that you're talking about, there's always going to be an individual ready to help. And I put myself in that category of someone ready to help that Cornish business, ready to work with the Cornwall Chamber of Commerce and other networks like that. But we need an organized network of captains and leaders who step up and say, look, I will be like a Cornish captain of diaspora in a local city, New York or Washington or San Francisco or whatever city it may be, to say, I'm ready to represent Cornwall. I'm ready to help your business expand. So that it's a coordinated network. And I mentioned the Cornwall Chamber of Commerce are doing such effective work. I think how we take these next steps to build this diaspora would be, I think, very much in cooperation with the Chamber, but also with the Cornwall Council, just to work with individuals to say, how do we build this? And then identify individuals, I think, points of light of people in specific cities who stand up and say, I'm ready to represent Cornwall and steer resources back to Cornwall.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you compare the Cornish diaspora with the Irish. You know, the Irish is a very sort of forceful lobby group, those of Irish descent who are in the United States. Maybe Cornwall is not as connected. I know there are Cornish associations in various towns, but it strikes me, and you can tell me I'm wrong if you like, that is very much about looking back to the past rather than establishing those links here and now in 2023.
You're absolutely right. There is a tendency for diaspora activity, especially for Scotland, to lean perhaps too much on the heritage side, such as it can be, obviously with Scotland, it's about tartan and kilts and castles, and that's all there, but we don't want to romanticize it too much that it oversees or blocks our view of the contemporary modern side of activities in Scotland. Same goes for Cornwall. When we speak of this Cornish heritage, these remarkable families and miners that went around the world to do extraordinary things and sacrifice to build their communities, I think we honor them by remembering that heritage, but also putting a light on the modern side of what's happening in Cornwall now. That's what they would want us to do. And so I think that my love for Cornwall is its heritage, but it's also seeing the entrepreneurship, the excitement and the enthusiasm for modern contemporary Cornwall. And that's, I think, what this diaspora can help people to understand. This is a good investment to invest or bridge connections for Cornwall now, while we honor that past of these great immigrants that went around the world to, build their communities.
And of course, much of what's happening in Cornwall now does echo our past. We take, for example, the resumption of mining at South Crofty, the search for lithium, which has the potential to make us a sort of mineral superpower again, and the renewables. We are kind of almost going back to the past in what we're doing. The final question for you, Ian, and it's I guess quite a hard one, is that do you believe that if there is somebody who is well off, they are a business investor, they are actually more likely to look favourably upon a business investment because it connects with their ancestral heritage? Or are they always going to be hard-nosed? They're looking for the big bucks, they're looking for the return, and sentiment be damned?
That is such a good question, and I would say not necessarily a difficult question. I would say the answer to that is absolutely. I think people are motivated by, if they have a positive view of heritage, family, as we started the conversation, if they're motivated by that, then it will most definitely be a motivator for investment and creating linkages. And that's why I feel as we identify these individuals around the world to say, I want to give back to Cornwall, I want to support Cornwall. These are individuals, captains around the world who can say, I want to play this role to help do that. And that very much is motivated by that internal sort of spiritual desire to give back. So that business person that you're talking about, no question in my mind that they would be motivated to do that and to invest and help build modern contemporary Cornwall.
Ian, it's been a fascinating conversation. I know that you've got a flight to catch because you're off to the other side of your nation. Isn't that correct?
That's absolutely right. I'm going to be not too far in the Bay Area from a place called Grass Valley, California. Your listeners should look it up. It's one of the first Cornish USA towns in America, so it won't be too far from that. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
See if you can access pasty while you're there. Lovely to talk to you, Ian. Thank you so much. We must catch up again.
Okay, cheers.
Good to speak to you. Take care. Bye-bye. Ian Houston there, talking to us live from Washington, D.C., where he is a commentator and a columnist writing about the American diasporas, including the Cornish, very much making the point that we are missing a trick here in Cornwall if we don't try and make connections with people with Cornish ancestry elsewhere who might be more favourably disposed to invest in our businesses, to donate to our charities. Interesting idea. If you've got any thoughts, let me know. 0808 100 1039.